What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I would like to welcome you all to another edition of Wayne's Perspective, where we operate in discipline, decency, integrity, and respect. And I'm coming through with another video just for you. All right, y'all. For today's video, I'm going to talk about two stories I'm sure most of you might have heard of and just probably, either read a couple articles on it or listened to some news clips if there were any. Um, well, no, I take that back. There probably were some news clips about this, but you probably didn't either you didn't hear it or you watched them and you just moved on, with the fast pace of news media these days. But one article is going to talk about the sentencing of David DePape, the guy who assaulted Paul Pelosi, the husband of Nancy Pelosi. And then the second article is going to talk about Daniel Perry, the guy who was pardoned in Texas by Governor Greg Abbott. So without further delay, y'all, let's go ahead and get right into the first article here. Get my screen shared for everyone. All right. So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. And of course, I'll be here with my thoughts as well.
This news story was written by Azi Paibara, Paul Pelosi's attacker sentenced to 30 years in prison. A jury convicted David DePape in November 2023 on federal charges of trying to kidnap then-House Speaker Nancy Pelosi,
So apparently, either his name is DePape or DePape or
Democrat,
whatever.
California, and assaulting Paul Pelosi because of his wife's work in Congress. David DePape, the man whose embrace of right-wing conspiracy theories led him to break into Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco home and bludgeon her 82-year-old husband, was sentenced Friday to 30 years in prison. Federal prosecutors had asked for a 40-year term, arguing that the attack constituted an act of terrorism.
Okay, first point. Usually, when it comes to people who embrace right wing conspiracy theories, what do they usually resort to? Violence. And they resort to violence when they don't get their way. Let's remember that. Number two, 30 years was a lengthy sentence, but I think 40 years would have been right. Hell, I think more than 40 years would have been right, considering what this guy attempted to do. You know, is it an act of terrorism? I think so. Let's continue on.
In a statement Friday before the sentencing, Erin Bennett, spokesman for the Congresswoman, said the family couldn't be prouder of their pop and his tremendous courage in saving his own life on the night of the attack and in testifying in this case. Nancy Pelosi and her family will not be offering further comment on this matter at this time, Bennett said. In a letter sent to the federal judge before Friday's sentencing, Nancy and Paul Pelosi asked the court for a very long sentence for DePape, CBS News reported. Paul Pelosi also detailed the lingering effects of the attack in the letter. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre condemned the attack during a daily press briefing Friday. "There's absolutely no place for political violence in America. Not at all," she said after the sentencing. "As leaders, we owe it to everyone not to repeat dangerous conspiracy theories and speak out against violence and violent rhetoric."
Now, in a more civilized and normal society, such a statement should bring everybody together and it should be something that everybody agrees with. But in this highly polarized and divided society, you know, one side is going to agree with it, the other side is just going to look way
A
past it.
jury convicted DePape in November 2023 on federal charges of trying to kidnap the then House Speaker and assaulting Paul Pelosi because of his wife's work in Congress.
Now, this part about trying to kidnap Nancy Pelosi, keep that in mind because it becomes important later.
The unanimous verdict came at the end of a 4-day trial in U.S. District Court in San Francisco. On October 28, 2022, police in San Francisco responded to a break-in at the Pelosi home and found DePape, who grabbed a hammer from Paul Pelosi and attacked him in front of police. The attack was captured on police body camera video.
Okay, now speaking of this body camera video now, before I play this, which is still crazy when you think about it, I was listening to a video on Karen Hunter channel, and shout out to her as well. This had to have been in 2023, and she was talking about this particular video with her guest. And one of the points that they made was that it seemed like they took a while to even, get on them, so to speak, and it's like, okay, if that guy was black and he was standing there with a weapon in his hand, they wouldn't have wasted no time, rushing the suspect. But in this case, it seemed like they was like trying to legit negotiate with him and all that, put the weapon down. I mean, it's obvious he won't put the weapon down. And now when I think about it, before I even hit play, it looks like you can tell that he was about to attack this guy. He won't gonna just come out, drop the hammer, and emerge with his hands up. He won't gonna do that. And besides, when people like this got a chance to commit any act of violence, you already know what it is. So but the point that they was trying to make on Karen Hunter's video was that if that was a black man, they would have rushed him with the quickness. But in this case, with this guy, it seemed like they was just giving him a chance. And only then when he attacked him, that's when they rushed in, when really they should have rushed in before, because it was a clear and present danger right in front of their eyes. But y'all, let's take a look at this video cam. It's crazy.
Yeah, definitely don't want all of here. I definitely don't want all of here. Hello.
You got to wonder, where's the security? I'm pretty sure the Pelosi's has some type of security around their home. It's crazy that you can just, it looked like you could just walk up.
Fucking said 2620, right?
Just watch this, y'all.
40. Oh, yeah, it literally said that. Hi, how you doing?
Oh yeah.
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer on call.
Bro,
They should have been on that guy's ass as soon as they saw that. He had a weapon in his hand. Could have killed that guy.
Edward 14, Edward 10, backup code 3.
Code 3 back up at 26.
Give me your hand.
Units code
Give me
3.
your hand.
40 Broadway for 14 hours.
Edward 14, Edward 10, medics code 3 as well.
Looks like he knocked him unconscious.
Sorry, 14 number 2, save medic code 3.
Affirmative.
That's crazy right there.
Pelosi suffered 2 wounds to his head, including a skull fracture.
Crazy.
Nancy Pelosi was not home at the time of the attack. The attack at the home of one of the country's highest elected officials came just days before the midterm elections, and renewed worries about the threat of political violence in a deeply polarized country.
And it's still amazing to me, for the wrong reasons, that you have a certain selection of people in this country who feel that political violence is a good thing or is a necessary thing. It's only good when it serves their purposes. But if it were to serve anybody else's purposes, that's when it becomes a problem, right? The double standards, we can resort to political violence, but you can't. We can use violence as a way to get what we want, but you can't. You see how crazy that sounds? Let's carry on, y'all.
Sleeping alone in my home was very difficult because I kept remembering the defendant breaking into my house, Paul Pelosi said in the statement to the court. The defendant severely damaged the nerves in my left hand. My forehand was gloved, exposing raw nerves and blood vessels. Surgeries and treatments mostly healed the skin, but underneath I still feel pinched nerves in my left hand. This makes basic tasks like using buttons, cutlery, and simple tools more difficult. DePape, who was 43 at the time of the trial, admitted that he broke into the home intending to hold Nancy Pelosi hostage and break her kneecaps.
See, exactly what I'm talking about. So breaking and entering and attempting to use violence. And again, I must ask, what purpose did this serve at all? How is this going to help you? How is this going to help the conservative case? How was this going to help anything overall? You doing this? You think this was going to allow you to get your demands met, whatever they may have been? You think that was going to be an easy thing to pursue or get across because you're going to resort to this? But then again, if you flip the situation around and you take a conservative hostage and attempt to do something like this, then that's when it becomes a problem. But when it's in the case of the Pelosi's or anybody else, then that's all good, right?
He also said he bludgeoned Paul Pelosi with a hammer after police arrived because his plan to end what he viewed as government corruption was unraveling.
And look, Nobody gives one single solitary damn about what he may or may not view as government corruption. Like, seriously?
During the trial, other potential targets of DePape's were disclosed, including California Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat California, and Hunter Biden, the president's son.
And of course, you know, some of these names are not surprising because when you got the likes of Donald damn Trump mentioning their name, when you got Republicans on the House and the Senate singling these people out, and when you got a right-wing echo media system that mentions these people as well as internet articles and all that stuff, you know, who else the targets are going to be? But if you target them, that's when it becomes a problem, right? They can target you all day and expect you to not say anything, but target just one of them. It'll be a worldwide story. You know, help me make it make sense. And I have to ask, Newsom, Schiff, and Hunter Biden, what did they do to this guy? Not a damn thing. Let's carry on, y'all. It's making me sick.
Angela Chuang, one of DePape's attorneys, told the jury her client was motivated by a mix of his political beliefs and was caught up in conspiracy theories.
And whose fault is that? That's nobody else's fault but his own. You should be disciplined enough, yeah, the D word, you should be disciplined enough to know what's fact and what's fiction, what's conspiracy theory and what's not, you know. So if you was caught up in it, again, tough shit. Whose fault is that? But see, when they get caught up in this nonsense, then it usually results in stuff like this.
But, Chuang said, her client was not motivated to attack Pelosi because of her position in Congress, but rather because of her leadership within the Democratic Party.
Now, that makes no sense because how can you differentiate between her position as the Speaker of the House at the time and her position as a leader within the Democratic Party? How can you differentiate both of those? They're both one and the same, if you ask me. None but excuses.
She argued that this made him innocent of the specific charges against him, of attempted kidnapping of a federal official and assault on the immediate family member of a federal official.
It was an attempted kidnapping because if you, let me scroll back up. See, he admitted that he broke into the home intending to hold Nancy Pelosi hostage and break her kneecaps. That's an admission of an attempted kidnapping. So I don't get what the attorney was saying, but oh my goodness.
Chuang said DePape believed the party was part of a corrupt ruling class cabal that promoted assault on children.
Nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense.
DePape was given 20 years for one count and 30 years for another count. The sentences will run concurrently. Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley also gave DePape credit for the 18 months that he's been in custody. In a sentencing memo earlier this month, prosecutors said that the court bears a responsibility to use DePape's sentence to deter others from committing political violence. The attack at the Pelosi home comes after a dramatic increase in threats against lawmakers and government officials in recent years. At a time when extremism has led to attacks on public and elected officials, this case presents a moment to speak to others harboring ideologically motivated violent dreams and plans. The prosecutors wrote, DePape will face another trial on state charges of attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, elder abuse, residential burglary, false imprisonment, and threatening serious bodily harm to a public official. He has pleaded not guilty in that case.
And make no mistake about it, he should be charged and found guilty of every single one of those charges because it's clear what his motivations were. And if he had any additional time on his hands, he probably would have did much worse. So I say good riddance. In my view, he should get more than 30 years, but you know, hey, I'm not in that world, so to speak, but the fact that he was convicted and found guilty and is going to get some time for this, he needs to serve every bit of it. He should not be eligible for parole or probation or anything like that. Let him serve the full 30 years and let him get found guilty on them other charges that were mentioned at the end of this article. So with all that being said, y'all, we're going to move on to the next one. Give me 1 second. All right. All right. Now, this one I'm going to read to y'all because I didn't want to go through the hassles of trying to do read out loud for this one, but this one is courtesy of the Bulwark, It's Daniel Perry and the Republican Meeting of Law and Order, and this is courtesy of Jonathan V. Last. So we're going to go ahead and get right into this one, y'all. I'm going to read this one. Okay. So Andrew Egger talked about the pardon of Daniel Perry this morning, but there's more in this story that I want to unpack. I hope you'll stay with me. Let me do that again. Andrew Egger talked about the pardon of Daniel Perry this morning, but there's more in this story that I want to unpack. I hope you'll stay with me because I think it's important. Perry was serving a 25-year sentence after being convicted of the murder of Garrett Foster. This case is an almost perfect distillation of what Republicans mean when they talk about law and order. On July 25th, 2020, Garrett Foster, a retired Air Force veteran, was attending a protest in Austin. Foster was open carrying a rifle, as is legal under Texas law. That's important. Daniel Perry was driving a car when he encountered this protest. He sped through a red light and accelerated his car into a group of protesters, one of whom was Whitney Mitchell. Mitchell, who was Foster's fiance, was in a wheelchair. She is a quadruple amputee. Now, let me stop right there for a minute. I mentioned in a previous video that I'm on both sides, if you will, of protesting. On one end, do I support protests and what they stand for and what the purpose is? Yes. This country, usually thrives on protests, and protest goes back decades. This isn't something that just started, when Donald Trump got into the White House. We can all go back into history and look at what protests have done in this country. Some successful, some not. But I understand the purpose. However, on the other hand, what I do not support when it comes to protests is blocking traffic, nor do I support any legislation that makes it okay to run down protesters. No, we don't do that. I never put my vote or support behind any legislation that makes it right to harm a civilian or to harm a constituent. Never will I support anything like that. But like I said, I do not support holding up traffic, because putting myself in the shoes of a driver, which I do every day, I wouldn't like it if I was on my way to work or to the store or anywhere and I have to be subject to block traffic because of a protest. But at the same time, what I'm not going to do is speed through a red light or attempt to drive over a protester because number one, it's immoral. Number two, it's dangerous. Number three, I don't want to take a life. Number four, I don't want to end up in anybody's court on account of this. I just don't. But like I said, I agree with protests, but you take it a step too far when you start blocking traffic. I mean, you never know what somebody has going on, and it could be a whole source of things, You just shouldn't take it that far. So continuing on, Foster approached Perry's vehicle in an attempt to get him to stop ramming pedestrians. His firearm was in a safe position. Safety on, no round in the chamber, and pointing at the ground. Perry shot Foster 5 times. Foster died. The case had everything Republicans love. A peaceful protest with people exercising their First Amendment rights, a veteran lawfully exercising his Second Amendment right, and before the murder, the killer had been searching the internet for young girls and sending sexually explicit texts to a minor. Now, just imagine if that was a black man doing that. It'll be a worldwide story. But apparently when somebody else is doing it, in this case, a white man, nah, we're not going to talk about that. It's no big deal. Nobody was hurt. We just going to sweep that under the rug. He might have been going through something in his personal life. He might have been frustrated at work or something like that, so we're going to give him all the leeway possible with that. But like I said, if that was a black man, oh yeah, it'll be plastered every damn where. And as the article continues on, the only problem with the protest itself, it was a Black Lives Matter protest. Need we say more? And so Daniel Perry, a groomer who was convicted of murder by a jury of his peers, became a conservative cause celebre. We should be clear that there is no reasonable legal defense of Perry, none. He initially claimed that Foster had not pointed his weapon at him. Here was Perry's initial statement to police. I believe he was going to aim at me. I didn't want to give him a chance to aim at me. Other eyewitnesses confirmed that Foster did not raise his weapon. No witnesses testified that Foster did raise his gun. At the time of the confrontation, Perry's car was surrounded by protesters. Remember, he had initially driven into them. Witnesses testified that Perry attempted to get out of his car, but that Foster, standing by the driver's door, told him not to get out and motioned for him to move on. Had Perry exited the vehicle, it is reasonable to believe that the confrontation would have escalated. Oh yeah, it definitely would have escalated. When you consider what was going on, what the protest was about, and how tense the situation was, it was bound to get into a confrontation. Yeah, anybody can see that. Foster seemed, by all testimony, to have been trying to protect the pedestrians from Perry's vehicle and also protect Perry from the angry people he had assaulted with his car. But Perry shot and killed Foster anyway. Why? First off, Perry is a racist. And when I say racist, I don't mean in the Archie Bunker sense. And for those of you listening, if you don't know who Archie Bunker is, look it up. This is a guy who hates black people so much that he frequently talked about killing them for sport. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence on this point, and I won't quote any of it here, but you can read about it if you like at that particular link. I'm not going to open it up. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to stop right here to ask, to the black conservatives, specifically the black men, where y'all at on this one? What are y'all thoughts on this guy hating black people so much that he talked about killing them for sport? Do you have anything to say about that? Or the only thing that matters to you is what's in your wallet and what the First Step Act is or isn't doing? Is that your only thing? Oh, and by the way, when it came to the David DePape, what are y'all thoughts on that? Was it okay because he was going after someone in the Pelosi family? Was that okay? Or the only thing that matters is what the First Step Act is or isn't doing and what's in your wallet. Let me move on. Second, there's ample evidence that Perry had been working himself up to seeking out a Black Lives Matter protest for the purpose of killing. Radley Barco has the full rundown on this here. For instance, here's something Perry wrote in June of 2020. I might have to kill a few people on my way to work. They are riding outside my apartment complex. Now, that was no slip of the lip, as well as everything else that we're about to get into this letter. He meant what the hell he said. It won't a joke, because like I said, everything is a damn joke, right? Until it ain't. But like I said, he meant what the hell he said, and then at that particular time, June of 2020, yeah, the entitlement and the arrogance and the boldness and the cockiness and being emboldened, yeah, that was in full swing during that quote unquote Trump era. We remember, we saw it. At trial, prosecutors presented an exchange Perry had with a friend in which he had mused on how to create a situation in which he would be justified to kill. Perry speculated how he might get away with such a killing by claiming self-defense as he is now doing. Okay, so he a manipulator too. Prosecutors presented a Facebook Messenger chat between Perry and a friend, Michael Holcomb, which occurred 2 weeks before he shot Foster. In it, Perry argued that shooting protesters was legal if it was in self-defense. Holcomb, who was called to the stand Wednesday afternoon, seemed to try to talk Perry down. Aren't you a CDL holder too, he asked, referring to the men's licenses to carry concealed handguns. We went through the same training. Shooting after creating an event where you have to shoot is not a good shoot. And while it doesn't have any bearing on the case, I'll mention it again. Perry was also actively pursuing underage girls. But like I said, where's the outrage on that? Where's the outrage? Because again, if that was a black man, we all know what the response would have been. Hell, if it was a Muslim man, we know what the response would have been. But when it comes to a white man like this, he wouldn't do such a thing. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. He was going through something. He had a hard life growing up. He had a hard teen life. He had a hard adult life, a hard adult life. Everything was hard. Yeah, we got it. There is no legal or moral justification for pardoning Perry. None. His trial was fair. The jury acted reasonably. The laws he broke were well defined and serious. He is not a good guy who had one bad moment. That's for damn sure. There is no indication that he has repented and become a different man than the one who fantasized about murder and then carried it out. Oh no, he ain't gonna repent. He ain't gonna apologize. And becoming a different person, well, the jury's out on that. The only reason to pardon Perry is political. Damn right. Pardoning Perry creates political gain for Governor Abbott because his constituents like Perry. And these voters like Perry precisely because of who he murdered. The story doesn't stop with Perry's pardon. In 2023, Abbott and the Republican Texas legislature passed a law which allows the state to remove from office rogue locally elected district attorneys. The public justification for the law was that some DAs were too lenient on crime. Today, the state is looking into removing Jose Garza, the DA who prosecuted Perry. No surprise there. While pardoning Perry, Governor Abbott claimed that Garza had demonstrated unethical and biased misuse of his office in prosecuting Daniel Scott Perry. Okay, who are you to claim? Who are you to claim what's unethical and what's biased? Like, who gave you the right to make such a decision, Governor Abbott? And secondly, I don't think this article mentions this, but in addition to the pardon, he got his gun rights stored too. And then for the life of me, it boggles the mind why they insist on giving people the right to own guns, especially after they committed a murder. You know, basically people who should not have access to guns in any stretch of the imagination, they get their rights back. Why? So they could go out and do the same thing again on an even larger and worse scale? It makes no sense to me. Texas Republicans are not content to allow Perry's murder of Garrett Foster. They also want to send a message that even using the law to bring charges against members of the in group who killed members of the out group is verboten. That is what law and order means to Republicans, and it is all perfectly legal. Yeah, it's legal to them, but if somebody else took the law in their own hands like that, it'll be a big damn problem. Got it. One last thing, I want to give you Radley Balco's view of Garrett Foster. Garrett Foster was not a far-left anarchist, a rioter, or an Antifa terrorist. He wasn't even a leftist. He was a self-described libertarian who believed in gun rights and supported the Libertarian Party presidential ticket in 2020. He also seemed like a decent human being. Not only did Foster act lawfully on the night he was killed, he did precisely what gun rights advocates like Abbott, Tucker Carlson, and other gun rights supporters said the Second Amendment exists to protect. He defended himself and others from a man who had good reason to think intended them harm. You see, gun rights supporters, they're okay as long as they're Republican, but gun rights supporters who are Democrat or Libertarian, they're an issue. Got it. He also showed remarkable composure and restraint. When Perry drove into the crowd and nearly struck Foster's disabled fiancee, Foster didn't lash out in anger. Witnesses say he approached the vehicle, gun barrel down, with his finger off the trigger. He then gave Perry a warning and urged him through the crowd. When Perry started to get out of his car, Foster told him to stay in the vehicle, presumably to avoid more confrontation. We finally have a good guy with a gun. He gets murdered, and then the state protects his murderer. No surprise there. That is the reality in Texas, and also one possible future for America. Don't accept it. And we won't. You know, this is a tough pill to swallow in and outside of Texas, but at the end of the day, none of us are surprised because even then, you know, just a few short months ago, Greg Abbott was already motioning that he was going to pardon him. You know, why it took so long, I don't know. They claim an investigation was conducted, but, you know, the people that was conducting that investigation were all appointed by Greg Abbott, if I, you know, according to what I've read or based on what my understanding is about it. That's what happened there, you know. But then again, at the first sight of a gun, they get paranoid, which I guess to a certain degree, I understand it. But did you have to murder him? Did you have to take a life? It's crazy. So, you know, a meaningless, immoral pardon for somebody who didn't deserve it. And stay tuned for my next video because I'm going to be talking about another issue of pardon. This time is going to be for the right reasons. So with all that being said, y'all, yeah, that's where we are, you know. So, and then I must ask one more time to the Black Republicans, the Black conservatives, specifically the men, where are y'all thoughts on this? Are y'all going to offer any thoughts on that, or y'all going to be quiet? Are y'all going to talk about what a travesty it is for a guy like that to get a pardon, or are you going to just resort to what Biden is or isn't doing for Black people, and you going to just tout what the First Step Act is or isn't doing and how your wallet looking? Because that's what it all boils down to at the end, right? Anyway, y'all, if you like what you heard and you're ready to become part of Team Discipline, go ahead and hit that like button and drop some comments if you feel in the content, and let me know what you think about that pardon, and let me know what you think about the sentencing for Mr. DePape. Last but not least, hit that subscribe button along with the bell so you're notified when I drop new videos. And until next time, my people, take care of yourselves. And remember, the power of the mind is valuable, and you do not have to resort to violence when you don't get your way.